The Irish government says it's on the road to recovery, but still hit the country's long-suffering people with a new €3.5 billion dose of austerity. Finance Minister Michael Noonan presented a budget that included a politically incendiary property tax, even as 1 in 6 Irish homeowners are struggling to pay their mortgages.
We are now, of course, in our own difficult times again, with all our unfinished projects of equality and citizenship, nearly 100 years on from the 1913 lockout. But I believe, credum in winter neherin, I think that Irish people can again show the same determination to bring about the positive changes and to create a society that we can be proud of, an Irishness to be proud of. Raymond Williams I have often quoted. He says we have a choice. We can passively remain the victims of history, stuck like a target, or we can actively create a whole new world by firing arrows through old myths and inevitabilities. It is always so important that we never forget the courage of people in initiating the demand for the right, and those who came together and celebrated the collective right that made it possible. The lockout reminds us that self-determination, sought in the name of a nationalism that did not include equality, may not only omit the transformation needed to ensure workers, women and minority rights. It may indeed, as the story unfolded, tell us that there were those among such ranks who not only rejected such rights, but subjugated them to the pursuit of profit without obligations or any social responsibility.
At the end of last year, our economy was in deep crisis. And while steps to recover from the crisis have been taken, we remain in crisis today. I would love to tell you tonight that our economic problems are solved and that the worst is over. But for far too many of you, that is simply not the truth. If you are unemployed, you're one of the many who still can't find work. If you are in business, you may still not be able to get the credit you need. If you're a parent who's just put the children to bed, you may be wondering how you're going to meet that mortgage or pay those bills. Or you may be looking at your adult children as they leave Ireland in search of new opportunity. That may be the truth as you live it and know it. Let me say this to you all. You are not responsible for this crisis. This can only be done by us, ourselves, working together. Right now, our most important responsibility is to do what must be done because we simply can't afford to. Your courage, your character, and your sense of responsibility, for which I thank you. He got back his dignity. Once more, he felt he was making a real contribution. We've met our commitments to the EU and the IMF in full, and the cost of rescuing the banks. Let me be very clear. Ireland supports stronger economic governance throughout Europe, and particularly in the Eurozone. In fact, the Irish people are paying the price now to prove our shared determination to protect our currency. Before asking families to make sacrifices, we insisted on sacrifices from those at the top. But we will also do all we can to protect the most vulnerable in our communities, our children, the sick and the elderly.
2 minutes.
Yesterday I asked you a number of appropriate and pertinent questions about your government's cuts to incomes of lower and middle income families, to child benefit, maternity benefit and particularly the respite carers grant. Now your practice increasingly in defending bad policy decisions while being scrutinised by Sinn Féin is to cynically use the recent conflict in the north as a distraction from your own decisions. Now, I know you don't like me putting these questions, so forget about me. Forget about me for a second. I'm sure you've read in today's Irish Examiner.
Would you please, let the deputy ask his question?
I'm sure you've read in today's Irish Examiner the letter from Pat O'Mahony, husband and carer to Margaret. Now, he wants you to reverse your cuts to the respite carers grant. Will you respond to him, Taoiseach? Forget about Sinn Féin. Forget about all these other issues. Here is a citizen writing to the government and saying, reverse these cuts. Will you do so? Led the Hull.
Thank you. First of all, Deputy, I'd say there are a lot of people who would like to forget about Sinn Féin. But your mandate in here is not to allow that to happen. That's the first thing I say to you. The position insofar as the budget is concerned, Deputy Adams, is that the government gave very careful consideration to this budget, which essentially is about providing an opportunity to restore our public finances to good health, to grow our economy and to be able to create jobs. That's what the central thrust of this budget is about, because all of those people who are on social protection or who are unemployed or who are low paid will never have the opportunity to have a better lifestyle and better opportunities unless we deal with the central fault and structural faults in our economy. Now, in regard to the respite care grant that you refer to, this will not be reversed. And now he's a full-time carer, and the conditions, as you know, Taoiseach, specify that it must be full-time care. So he's been cut by €8.60. His loved one's in a wheelchair. The house has to be heated because she can't move around. There's a bigger cost involved there. Please. The carbon footprint means that they're going to have to pay extra for travel. And her dietary requirements mean that the cost of living in that house is higher than normal. And for the disabled, the same applies. So in a case of a government setting out to deal with this figure of €4 billion, your government has actually taken out the political gun to the most vulnerable, the blind and the carers and the disabled. I've been in houses, you've been in houses. You've seen them with dementia, you've seen them incontinent, you've seen the pressure that is on people who look after them on a full-time basis. When you pump hundreds of thousands of millions into a black hole of banks and you allow people to walk away with pensions of over 100,000 untouched. There can be nothing, Taoiseach, in our so-called Christian country that is as unfair as what I saw last Wednesday for the disabled, the carers and the blind. And every government minister with any gumption should be ashamed of themselves to walk up those steps and vote for that.
You didn't give any careful consideration, perhaps you did, about cutting your own salary, about cutting the salaries of the advisors that you have, about all of the other bankers who are still on huge pensions and who are still, even though they helped to create the mess that we're in, who are still drawing down huge salaries. So Pat O'Mahony, I don't know Pat O'Mahony. I don't know his wife Margaret. I know lots of people like him, but I don't know them. He writes this morning that you don't give a fiddlers for him and his wife Margaret. And I have to say that he's right. You've just said you're not going to reverse what this man and his wife depend on.
Question, please.
To get through life. Now, you weren't sent in here. I have to repeat this. You were not sent in here to do this. You sought an entirely different mandate. Labour sought an entirely different mandate. You're doing the very opposite to what you were sent in here to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, isn't that what you tend to do during an election?
But I believe, credum in winter neherin, I think that Irish people can again show the same determination to bring about the positive changes and to create a society that we can be proud of, an Irishness to be proud of. Raymond Williams I have often quoted. He says we have a choice. We can passively remain the victims of history, stuck like a target, or we can actively create a whole new world by firing arrows through old myths and inevitabilities. It is always so important that we never forget the courage of people in initiating the demand for the right, and those who came together and celebrated the collective right that made it possible. The lockout reminds us that self-determination, sought in the name of a nationalism that did not include equality, may not only omit the transformation needed to ensure workers, women, and minority rights. It may indeed, as the story unfolded, tell us that there were those among such ranks who not only rejected such rights, but subjugated them to the pursuit of profit without obligations or any social responsibility.